Sounds good. We'll get going. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to start freelancing if we don't get more questions from you. Anyway, welcome to the 2nd District. Thank you for coming to Mayor's Night Out. We do these 6 times a year now. We schedule them heavy when it's easiest for people to come. That's the way we approach it now, is during the winter months we try to schedule them because it's easier for people to show up at community meetings in winter months. And then when summertime rolls around, we start taking it easy a little bit more because we found when we were doing them once a month, we found that attendance dropped off sharply if it was 85 degrees and beautiful out. So anyway, I want to thank Irving Elementary School for having us out tonight. I want to thank Miss Eva Porras and her staff for letting us use this beautiful school. Is she here right now, Miss Eva? No? Anyway, that was nice of her to let us use this. And I want to remind you, next Mayor's Night Out is next month, February 22nd. It's going to be in the 3rd District, Hammond High School, in the cafeteria. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to your 2nd District Councilman, Councilman Jackie Lackey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jackie Lackey of the 2nd District, which I was born and raised in this district, and I've seen some changes. And I got some new projects going on. We got a couple done towards the end of last year, and I got some more projects going. I'm going to talk with Mark and Stan Friday about. And if you have any questions for me, I'm going to stick around after the meeting, and you can come up and ask me what you want. And all of the main people are here, and if you got any questions, you can ask them the questions. That's important to you. And one more thing, I want to thank the city administration and the street department and all the guys that did the plowing and the garbage and everything else. They did a fabulous job and spent a lot of hours out there in the cold weather, and we owe them a big thanks for that. Thank you.
All right, where's the roving MC today? We're going retro today. This is a treat. Donna was the special events coordinator before she went off, and now she's working in Public Works. She represents the 1st District in the Public Works, so she doesn't get to do this very often. So she's coming back. Unfortunately, Michelle Turchaney's mother passed away recently, and so she obviously couldn't be here tonight, but Donna agreed to fill in, and we're going with the retro look this week. So, yeah, we're about to do that. I'm still introducing you.
Okay.
Hey, welcome, Donna.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all again.
Everywhere Donna goes, people just start applauding. She's going to run for mayor one year. So, so anyway, let's go ahead and introduce the department heads.
Good evening, Brian Miller.
Rachel Montes.
Pat Moore, Park Department.
Chris Sacalaris, Legal Aid.
Leanne Munoz, College Bound.
Bill Talon, Planning and Development.
Jack Smith, Hammond Sewer.
Brian Poland, City Planning.
Ron Milbeck, Environmental.
Stan Destotny, City Engineer.
Jeff Smith, Fire Department.
Africa Harbor Economic Development.
Milo Krasinski, Port Authority.
Kurt Cook, Building.
Steve Fowler, Public Works.
Chris Campbell, Information Technology.
Carmen Paniella, Hammond Housing.
Ed Caruso, Hammond Water.
Jim Callahan, Inspections Department.
Kelly Kearney, Code Enforcement.
Chris Cantar, Legal Department.
Bobby Lendy, Controller's Office.
All right, thank you. So I have a lot of help up here. If I do get stuck, I have people that can help me out. We've done something different this year. January 1st, which is a funny time to start a new department. I see Gary Gleason sitting out there. Hey, Gary. Gary's the head of the Public Works Department, which is a combination of 4 departments into one. It's all the employees from the Street Department, the Parks Department, the Garbage Department, and the Recycling Department got consolidated into one department we call Public Works now. And it allows us flexibility like we've never had before. And we've been tested with the streets. We've been tested just simply just trying to pick up your garbage if you had an alley pickup or getting your recycling has been a test. So it's been nice. One of the things we did, so we have Gary and Johnny leading it off. We still have a Parks Department. It's more about the buildings themselves and the facilities. Pat Moore still runs that department. And now we have district supervisors. Your district supervisor is here today. It's Steve Fowler. He represents the 2nd District. So if you have issues with any of those 4 areas of concern, of course, your councilman is somebody you could go to. Your councilman knows Steve, has Steve's contact number. Of course, you can approach Gary or Johnny as well. But one of the things I really like about our new system is there's accountability in the second. So if we do have a problem, we know who to call. You know, before we would have 4 different supervisors in the second district with 4 different departments. So streamlining, and then of course we were hit with the weather, with the snow, with the cold weather. I was thanking goodness that we had those consolidated departments because it helped us move even quicker than we probably would have moved before. So why don't you throw the microphone to our new department head there. I know he's here on a day off, but Gary, if you want to throw a few words out there about what you guys have been going through. Crazy hours, I know that.
Let's just be honest, something made Mother Nature upset with us. You can hear we're getting over colds, but we didn't take off no time, trust me. We've been hit with everything. I mean, we've all been through the same weather, from snow to wind to rain to 80 degrees and a change, 40 below, 40 above. We actually had a rainbow 2 days ago. I mean, this is crazy. We've never had nothing like this. We hold second place right now at 38.5 inches. In 1918 was 45 inches. So we're hold second place from then. This has not let up on us at all. We've used park department now. We've used sanitation. You never know what truck's going to go by and who's in it. We actually use the office secretaries. They're plowing too. Everybody was out there. So one day we're plowing, the next day we're patching, the next day we're plowing. I'm just going to throw my neck right out there on the line because I know people are upset about the way their streets look. If you understand salt like we do, salt starts slowing down after 32 degrees. We've used 5 ton of salt already. It's there. And if you noticed your streets coming in, I've seen Columbia, Southeastern, up this way, you're starting to see asphalt. We haven't salted. That's just automatic from the sun coming out today. It heated up the street, it heated up the salt, and now it's activating. That has nothing to do with us. It's already been down. If I could, I would put it down every time it snowed, and I wouldn't have to throw my neck out on the line. If you've been watching the news lately, you see that other towns and cities used it every time they come out. They wasted it. They were shown on the news yesterday, department head standing in empty salt domes, and his remark was, if we had an ice storm right now, I'd lose my job because I don't have salt that I could give out. If I would love to come out every single time it snowed and just burn the salt for you, but you don't want me to do that. I mean, Hammond's good, our salt is good, I order it. The mayor has no idea because a remark was made today to me, and I almost went off, but I didn't, but I did get loud, that the mayor handles the salt and everything. He has no idea what I pay, how much I order, how much I put down, and if he didn't have confidence in me, he would have called me at least one time before the first of the year. He knows we can handle it. So
We've been doing this for 10 years, Gary. You and I have been doing this for 10 years. So.
Exactly, and you see it, you know, like I said, I would love to put it down, but you see people with empty salt domes, they're hiring trucking companies to send to where they haven't had a lot of snow and try to buy theirs. This happened to us a few years ago when it froze up Lake Michigan. Salt went on the black market, and the mayor will tell you this. We had a police watch on our salt dome, and he asked me, how are we? And I said, Mayor, you can smile because you'll be okay. At the end of the year, we had about 8 loads of salt left. That's just 8 trucks. We put 35 at a time out on the road. That's what we ended up with. So black market salt was going between $250 and $350 a ton. We pay around $40. So I never ran the city out of salt, and it's not going to happen now either. You see I-65 was closed, 94 was closed. We never lost a street in Hammond. When police and fire would have a problem, we all had a pact that if they needed to get to a street during that storm, they would call us and say, PD to street, we're heading to 6800 Arkansas. Whoever was nearest there, a big plow, a little plow, would say, I got it, I'm right here. Everything went smooth. My motto is, I'll get police, fire, and ambulance to your house. It's up to you to get them in. We don't do sidewalks. So with that, the new change mayor has worked great. We have the supervisors got it real good. Usually we pick on them the first couple of years because they're rookies, but I think their first January pretty much beat them in on that. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
Throw them to the wolves, but we've used all the departments. Sanitation has been standing up to the plate. Our first couple of weeks of taking over was 0 absentee in sanitation. Now, all these cold winds and snow, you'd think they'd say, I'm not going in. They showed up. We had one day, the very first snow day.
That was
they
the
were
only
out
day
there.
we missed as a
That was it.
workforce.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I
because
think
we-
that's something, you know, it's the last alternative for us to shut City Hall down. You know, we keep City Hall open even if we have, you know, maybe we shut the court and the clerk down, you know, because when the court and the clerk's office is open, that encourages people to come to work. And then there are certain days where you don't want people coming to City Hall, but City Hall needs to be open in case you have an emergency. So, you know, it's our motto that we don't want to shut City Hall down. You know, we've had 2 major snowstorms with, you know, severe Arctic wind, and we've only shut down one day. And that was the day, it was a Monday, right after we got hammered by the blizzard, and then it was 30, 40 below. We called work off that day. By the way, I know Public Works was still working, and so was the mayor's office, open, taking phone calls. So we make it, the last thing I want you to think is we're looking for an excuse to take a day off. That's the last thing I want you to think about our administration. When there's an emergency in Hammond, if it's a blizzard or if it's a flood, you know, so you should be able to call the mayor's office even after hours, so.
And the reason too was, we usually are, maybe once a year we'll have to do alleys. We've had to do alleys 4 times already. So you figure 25 square miles of streets, add the alleys on after we're done. And the only ones that can go in the alleys is like Donna and Steve. We have to use pickup trucks. We
Yeah.
can't use anything bigger. And with something like that, and the reason Monday calling off for that anyways, the garbage men couldn't get down them until we got down them.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get into them for
Right.
a while. So
Right.
all in all, I've got nothing to say about it. It's the way I'm going to stay running it. And we're going to drive for conditions. We're in the worst of the worst. None of us had an accident. There's times we can't see out of any of the windows of our trucks, maybe a couple inches because of the snow blowing up. But we drive for it, and we'll get through it.
Great, thanks, Gary. Started off with the commercial. I didn't get a chance to introduce the council and Clerk Golick yet, so I want to thank the elected officials for coming to Mayor's Night Out. Hammond City Clerk Robert Golick, thank you very much, Clerk Golick. Hammond's 1st District Councilman, Councilman Mark Kowinski. Hammond's 2nd District Councilman, Councilman Jackie Lackey. Hammond's 4th District Councilman, Bill Emerson. Hammond Councilman at Large, Dan Spitali. And Hammond Councilwoman at Large, Janet Venez. I say it often, and I'm going to keep on saying it. Happy Council is a great council. One of the things I think that really helps, we have great communication between the council and the mayor. We have regular communication, and I think it's very important. It sounds so simple to say. My first term as mayor, I did not have regular communication with the council, and it was much tougher dealing with them on important issues. But I find that when you keep them informed every step of the way, like we've strived to do, it just makes life a lot easier. So I just want to thank the council because I think they're great, and I think we're doing good things for our city. So thank you for showing up. Appreciate it. Okay, so hopefully by this time, we've stalled a lot. Hopefully we got a couple extra questions out of it. But, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. You know what's funny? I've been looking at Dave Ham so long. I'm sorry. Dave Ham, our county councilman from Hammond, who's running for re-election. Looking at me cross-eyed right now. He's running for re-election this year. He does a great job for our city. And I've been friends with him so long, when I look at Dave, I don't look at him as an elected official. So I apologize, Dave Ham, great county councilman. So, how embarrassing. Anyway, let's move on and try to forget that ever happened. So, where are you, Donna? Oh, hey.
I'm just parked here by Gary, because the first several are for him.
Oh, nice.
Shall we begin?
Sure.
Lots of potholes, Columbia Avenue and Kennedy. When will they be fixed?
Kennedy and where?
Columbia.
As soon as we can get to them.
Right.
I mean, right now, what we're doing.
Explain the process a little. I know that, you know, you can't do a hot patch because none of the asphalt plants are open, right?
Right.
So we do cold patch, obviously,
Right,
during this time.
and years ago, like 10, 15, 20 years, they used to call it temporary. Well, you know, as time goes on, they did start making a lot better patch. You can put it in and it'll stay in. It wasn't like, well, it's temporary. Throw it in today and a couple weeks it's back out. This is a lot better patch now. Right now, what we started doing is all your departments got together that had front end loaders, and what we're doing is we're trying to get the snow off the corners of the main streets and sub-mains. So when you're approaching, I know a real bad one was 174th and Kennedy. You had to be halfway into the intersection because the church piled it, the gas
Gotcha.
station. So water, sewer, sanitary, all them asked me, do you need it? And I said, yeah, we'll take all we can. So that's what we've been doing. We've been using park department sanitation that have extra, and we're like hauling that right now. If the holes are out there, the foreman can come in and do them, and I'll write it down for him because I got another thing for him too. Instead of shutting a crew down, that's something that the foremen do on themselves now. If
Okay.
there's just a couple of holes, they'll take care of them, but it'll be.
When you say foreman, you're talking about the district foreman.
Supervisor, yes.
Right.
They take a lot onto themselves now.
Right.
Like if they never got a chance to just get their feet wet, you know, until the snow melts.
And, you know, one of the things we pointed out was, you know, Gary obviously being the department head, and Pat's here representing parks, and Johnny would be here if one of them couldn't fill in. But we also, every time we have mayor's night, we want the district supervisor here as well. So Steve, I see you got the microphone, and we got a couple complaints about.
I was just going to say Columbia Avenue's among, on my list, and we might get snow tomorrow, so I'm not sure if we're going to patch tomorrow, but it's possible I'll get to that tomorrow if it stays clear. You know, a big snowstorm, it takes, as Gary was saying, about 2 or 3 days before we get through all the alleys, all the streets, and all the piles of snow. So that's what we've been doing thus far this week. But tomorrow we might get a chance to patch some holes. I know there's a few on Chicago. We did do Columbia once about 2 weeks ago in Chicago also, and then Holman's got a few holes too that we really need to get to. There's actually a couple of holes here along this one-way street that is on my list too. So we will get to them as soon as we're free of the snow problems. But if you look at the long-range forecast, we're going to be doing a lot of plowing the next couple of weeks too, it looks like.
You know, I want to remind everybody here that we have a new app, and I'm doing my best to market this. We submitted a press release to the newspaper, and they didn't run with it. So we're doing our own press releases. Every time I go out, I'm making sure I talk about it. If you have a smartphone, if you have an Android or an iPhone or an iPad, or you could do it over the internet as well. You download Hammond 311. Can you do it off the internet? We have it at Go Hammond. Thank you, Chris. IT Chris, might want to grab that microphone there, bud. It's good to know you're there. But anyway, you download it for free, and it gives you the ability, let's say there's a big pothole down the street from your house. You go pull it up to the pothole, stop your car. You can take a picture of the pothole with your phone, and your phone knows where you are. It's got GPS. All of our new smartphones have GPS. So it would pinpoint exactly where you are. We would know exactly what the pothole looked like because you took a picture of it, and then you say pothole, and it would be emailed specifically to the department. In this case, it would go to Public Works. Is that a pretty fair summary of how it's working, Chris?
You're doing a great job.
Yeah, and then obviously we have different options. Like I have a handle on there, the mayor, and it always gets really good attention when I put complaints in.
Right. So
sometimes I want to follow up, and I do anonymous complaints because I don't want people to think it's the mayor. What if it's a regular member of the public and they put in a complaint? I want to make sure that my department heads are jumping on that as well. And these are all going through you pretty much, right, Chris?
Yeah, I get emailed every time.
Do you get email, or you get copied, or if it goes into Public Works, does it go straight to Gary, or does it go to you and then you forward it to Gary?
Depending on the topic, if it's like snow removal, which is the top topic right now,
Right.
it goes directly to Gary, but I do get a copy of it.
So you're always aware.
Everything.
The thing I like about it, Chris, and this was Chris's idea to go, we were looking at IBM, we looked at a couple other programs. C-Click Fix is the one we decided on. I like it a lot because what you'll find is when you can put in a complaint, I put in a couple. I put in one about graffiti, put in one about a zoning issue. And the cool thing is when you put it in, you get immediate email confirmation, right?
That's correct.
If you have an email on file. And it follows it up. Let's say my neighbor saw that pothole also, and they said, you know what, I broke an axle in that pothole. They could follow up and put a comment on there. This pothole is huge, it needs to be fixed. I would get that emailed to me. Once Gary answered it and said, okay, I got a crew out there going out there tomorrow, we're going to put some cold patch in there, it's going to take care of it, I would get that emailed from Gary to my smartphone. And then basically once it was closed, we would get a confirmation that it was closed. True?
Yes.
Right. So anyway, I took all your thunder, Chris. What else we
You
have?
pretty much said everything.
Yeah. How are we doing on downloads? Are you seeing a lot more action lately? Or?
We've got about 160 iPhone downloads and 105 right now, Android. For just officially announcing it last week, I think that's great.
What is the biggest complaints you've seen through the phone? Is it lights out? I think that's the biggest one.
Lights
I like.
out is a big one. We were getting a few graffiti, but since the weather came in, that's basically stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest one right now is snow removal, and we've got a few abandoned vehicles.
Yeah?
Unfortunately, because with all the snow, it's a lot easier to see them.
I gotcha. Interesting. So anyway, I wanted to point that out. We got Ed Banda out there, who's works for the city of Hammond Public Works Department, lighting, and I know you've got quite a few of those, right, Ed?
Oh, yeah, when they come in the email, they come through, we acknowledge it, Chris tells me, and I respond to it, or right now, I'm working with Gary, we have a fight. We got our office up and running, so he'll give us the printout, and then we'll follow up with it.
Yep. I put one in the other day, blinking light, it's great. It's nice, because you know how many times as mayor, I'm driving around and I see something and I'm like, okay, I just saw something and I got to remember when I get back to the office, I got to tell so-and-so we got to get on this. And I get back to the office and 20 things are waiting for me and I forget about it. Happens all the time. But now I make sure I stop my car, I pull up the Hammond 311 and I just fire it off from right there. I mean, it's very handy. I think that if you have a smartphone or an iPad or something like that, you'll find that it's very user-friendly. So anyway, we did our commercial. Gary, do you have something else?
Yeah, actually with that, there was something I just learned working with Chris that, I guess I could have caught it, somebody could have caught it, but it was a light out, but it was with the railroad. So I never answered it because I was like, well, it's railroad, it's not mine. So he actually emailed me and said, hey, is this something you could handle or me or whatever? So when it didn't get closed, he still notified us and we took care of it.
Nice.
Yeah, between Chris and I, we got hold of the railroad and everything.
If you pull up Hammond on the app, you'll see all the complaints that people have made. It stays on there for about a week after it closes, right, Chris?
It's like 2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks after? So you'll see if they closed out a pothole one, and you'll say, oh, yeah, that pothole was there, and you'd see how it was taken care of, basically. So I think it's a great system. We're trying to make it so that eventually, hopefully, we have thousands of emails on file, and we're trying to make it so that it's proactive with you. Let's say, for instance, 3 or 4 years from now, when this program is fully integrated and we're using it like we should, we have a tornado goes through our city. We could literally say, tornado going through North Hammond, take immediate cover. And it would go straight to your screen. That's what we're trying to get to. So you would get an email from the city that says, tornado coming through, take cover. This is where we're going. Blizzard conditions, please stay home. Schools are closed today. City Hall is closed today. City Hall is open today. There's a flood warning on the Little Cow, right? So we're trying to get to that interactive, back and forth with the residents. And I appreciate Chris. He's a smart guy. And we started the IT department a few years ago. We always had IT people, but we created a department. He's been running it and doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Am I missing anything?
I just wanted to point out that we have a new Facebook page.
Oh, yeah, and Twitter.
Yeah, and Twitter. And in the next 2 weeks, we will probably integrate the Hammond 311 with the Facebook page as well.
That's outstanding.
So you can use Facebook to report your issues.
We're doing our best to become more interactive. I got somebody in my office that's running the Facebook, Sharon Zaney, and she had no idea how to do Facebook or Twitter, and it's City Hammond. It's non-political. It's purely interacting with the residents, so it's totally appropriate for her to do it. And I think she actually likes Facebook and Twitter now. You can tell, she says, wow, I can see why people are doing this. But she puts I told her, I want 3 posts a day, City Hall is open today. Or we took a picture of the salt dome. Look at all the salt. The salt guys are out there throwing salt right now, We're just trying to constantly keep you up to date about what's going on. So anyway, all right, Donna? Oh, another one, Gary.
She's training me.
You're off to a great start, all these complaints right off the bat.
My own now, it's easier. Victor's asking about the sign that got damaged at 119th. What happened there is, Donna is aware of it.
119th and what?
119th, it's the, pardon me?
119th
It's the water guard, leading into the water gardens.
Oh, okay.
Turn off Calumet.
Gotcha.
Right there in the island. A semi hit that, and so we do have the report, we do have everything, but there's nothing we can do right now, but it will be, replaced or repaired.
Okay. Yes, sir. You the one right by the park entrance? That's a beautiful house. I love that house. Very lucky. I love that house. I'm sorry if I identified where you live. You're like, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I love your house.
When
by
I
the
was
way.
building that
I drive
house,
by on my bike.
Okay, thank you.
You're like, please shut up, Mayor. I'm trying to give my question. So.
Okay. Well, that's okay. You're the mayor. You override me, so I can't say that. But anyway, when I was building the house, I seen the sign there. After it was done, which is over a year ago, the sign was gone. I seen the post up there. So it's been a long time.
Okay.
And I noticed on 120th Street, when they repaved that road west of Calumet, they put a brand-new sign. It says, "Welcome to the Water Garden."
Okay.
No, did they replace it? No? Okay. It looks new.
Okay.
Oh,
I promise you, I'm
okay.
on it.
And I have another
That'd be a
question.
great one for Hammond 311, by the way. Just take a picture of the
like I
little
said,
post
I'm-
sticking up, say what happened to our
I'm
sign.
new to the city, so. Hammond Fest. I know you have some great singers, but I never, because I used to work at Inland, and I lived in Chicago, but now I live in the great city of Hammond.
Thank you.
But I never heard of the Polish Prince being asked to sing.
The who?
Polish Prince. He also sings not only Polish song, but he sings rock and roll.
Oh, Polish Prince.
Yes, and he
Okay.
also sings rock and roll. Bobby Benton, Mr.
Oh, I
Blue,
thought you were like,
Mr. Blue, and
is
Blue
it like,
on Blue.
I thought you meant there was like a Polish Prince.
Well, he is Polish. He does sing Polish songs.
And then I was thinking you were talking about like Prince, the purple guy.
He's not Polish.
He's not Polish, no.
But Bobby Benton is Polish and American, and he probably sang Polish song before he started singing rock and roll. Or
Okay.
oldies, I'm sorry, oldies.
Right. We do, during the fest every year,
I've never heard of Bobby Benton.
who'd we have last year, Pat, do you remember? Who played the Marina last year? During the Festival of Lakes, and I know a lot of people in this room go to it.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you, sir, I appreciate it. Every year during the fest, the main stage act is expensive entertainment, and then we also, it's a very special Sunday afternoon every year, we do the Polka Fest at the Hammond Marina. Outstanding, it's always usually, a few hundred people there. So the Cavalier always hosts it for us. Councilman Mark, you want to say anything about this, or? There's, what, a few hundred people there?
Several hundred, and they usually run out of food.
And it's usually 108 degrees.
Yeah,
It seems like it's always
It can
hot.
be warm, but they have tents or canopies there to help people out, and there's beverages and food and a lot of good music and dancing.
Yes. Councilman Mark always helps us with that. We appreciate it very much. And also, I imagine you just heard the complaint about the water garden sign. We'll be working on that shortly. We got a copy of that complaint, so we can follow
Yeah,
it
I
up, Tom?
had the pole taken out.
Okay. And plus,
So there's
what am I
nothing
saying?
there.
I'm sitting here looking at the first district supervisor. You could just put it in your back pocket, make sure we fix it, right?
Got it.
I love this new public works department. I got all this accountability now. Great, thank you. All right, next.
Okay, next, my question is regarding the alleys. Our alley during the summer is really dirty. Everyone dumps anything from mattresses to dressers in the alley. It stays like that for weeks. At times, I find myself calling the city for pickups. What can you do to help out and find the individuals that do this? The same with parking. They
Okay.
park a lot during the summer and obstruct the driving through of the alleyway.
Okay, that's a great question. Did they leave an address, or is it anonymous? Or?
They did, 4800 Oak.
Okay, so it's in this neck of the woods.
No problem. First off, make about 2,000 more citizens like yourself, because that's the first thing that would help our alleys. Obviously, our job is to help you haul away old mattresses, old couches, or whatever. That's what the street department is here for. Problem we have a lot of in this district is there is a lot of illegal dumping, where it's not your house that, it might be behind your house, but it's not your stuff. Somebody else came along your alley and dumped it. Well, be aware. If you see that going on, please call the police and let them know. If you see a driver's license, don't put yourself at risk, obviously, but if you see that happening, please, or call the street department and let us know, and we can forward the information. We will clean it up. It takes time, unfortunately, and again, with this winter weather, I haven't had much of a chance to get much junk in the past month.
Well, Steve, why don't we do this? Whoever asked this question, Steve is the supervisor for the second district, so let's make sure that this person, whoever's question it is, identifies themselves to you, and you can maybe knock it off, when we
Yeah,
get...
that's fine. If you want to stop by after the meeting, that would be great. I'll write down your particular block, and we'll try to get your area as soon as the weather breaks. But there's a lot of problem areas that I'm going to have to attack, and I mean, there's a lot of junk. Evictions, people who are renting apartments and say they evict a renter and put all of their belongings on the street and just leave it there in the alley. We're not really there for that. They're a business. They're supposed to haul their own stuff away. Unfortunately, they don't. So we give them the code enforcement, but eventually somebody's got to haul it away, and that's going to be us. And that takes resources away from law-abiding folks like yourself who just put a couch out there that you no longer want. So we will get to it, but unfortunately, it does take time, and there's a heck of a lot out there. So we'll, as soon as the weather breaks, I promise you, that and brush and all that other good stuff, we're going to attack it as best we can.
All right, thanks, Steve. I can tell you another effort to combat, junk, dirtiness in the alleys is the Hammond's Code Enforcement Department. So I'm going to have Kelly Kearney. Why don't you grab the microphone, Kelly? Talk a little bit. I know in the summertime especially, I could tell you from personal example, I got cited by code enforcement, which is classic. One year, I still talk about that one. It was a warning ticket.
I'll never live that down.
It wasn't you.
It was only
I know it was.
One of the things I'm looking forward to working with Public Works is, again, accountability. If Steve's got an issue that the junk is in the backyard or it's an empty lot, we can issue citations. Typically what we'll do in that situation, they may end up hauling it away, or we may go to Board of Works, get a order from them to go on the property and pull it out, and then we'll take that dump ticket and a per hour charge per man and lead it to the property, lead it to the homeowner, landlord in many cases. So there's avenues to this. Sometimes, as Steve says, it does take time, but we will, it is in the process, and we can always be reached, give us a call on what the status of it is. We'd like to get them picked up as soon as possible, but going through that Board of Works or going to get an order from the judge to get on private property, and we have to have that liability to make sure that we're covered on that. The other thing that they shouldn't be picking up or shouldn't have to pick up is construction debris. So when you have that, if you can give a call to code enforcement, that tips off a lot of things to us. Is there a permit for the property? What kind of construction debris is it? Are they ripping out walls? Converting on a single family home to a cut up? It's something that we're always aggressive on. So looking forward to this communication between the Public Works Department and solving some of these problems. It's just something that wasn't there before. So we're really looking forward to that.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. I think that's one of the neat things being mayor is seeing when all of these departments work together. That's when we're at our best. And, sometimes you see an organization where one department's siloed and they don't talk outside of that department. That is something we discourage greatly. Obviously the police department, fire department, code enforcement, working closely with each other is in all of our best interests. Because sometimes one of Brian's officers is in a house on a police call, and while they're in there, maybe they notice that the house is an illegal cut-up. And if it's an illegal cut-up, it's illegal. So Brian walks out, they contact code enforcement, now we have one more illegal cut-up that we got to go inspect, and same goes for if, code is in a building they're supposed to be in, maybe they see evidence of illegal drug use or something, other illegal, activities in there, then they inform the police department. I'm proud of that. It hasn't happened. I mean, it happens more lately than it did early on, but these guys are doing a great job, so. Anyway, thanks for the question.
Next one, Mayor. The lights on Calumet between Michigan and Sibley have been out for a couple of weeks.
Great question. I'm going to pass off to Stan here, but this is what I've been hearing. On the 8094, I noticed lights out a lot too, whole series of lights. And I've been hearing that some of these are out because of people that are stealing copper. I don't know if that's the same.
Yeah, that's what happened here. Someone stole the copper wiring that was running the conduit on the bottom of the bridge.
Which has got to be dangerous, right?
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, first you got to hang off the bridge to try to get to the conduit, and it could be hot.
And then what? You get done risking your life, and you go turn in the copper and probably get like
I don't know, maybe they got a couple $100 for it or something, but they did like $25,000 worth of damage.
That's what happened in this case.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that what's going on the highway too?
Those are our lights. The state doesn't light their highways except for the interstates, and very few of those are lit. But those are our lights. Frank's already got estimates, and he's looking into getting it fixed.
Do you guys actually fix those? Eddie, you go up on the highway, you go up to the top of those lights?
Yes, we do, but when they still...
You don't get paid enough then, buddy. Those are high up in the air.
Yeah, it is.
You're like, I wanted to talk to you about that actually, Mayor.
You mentioned the expressway though, too. The reason why those lights are out, too, Mayor, they'll immediately replace the wire, they'll still take them. It's like within days they'll take them. I don't know how...
Yeah, there's whole stretches of lights that are...
They'll do it during the day because they know the lights are out, there's no power going to it. So whoever's doing it is very smart. We make police reports, communicate with the police
Chief, you ever catch anybody stealing copper? Really? Well, I know, like, we have problems with gutters and stuff like that, right? Huh. Okay. Well, great question. Thank you. So it's a safe bet if you see a whole stretch of lights out, that's the cause. Yeah. I mean, individual lights, I agree. If the individual lights are out, you guys usually knock them out. Really? Wow. Great. You got that look on your face,
Yeah,
Dan?
the state's having the same issue. The lights on Klein Avenue where the curve is, every time they fix that, somebody steals the wires. So they've pretty much given up. Because we've gotten calls on those lights. Right by Michigan Avenue on Klein, there's about a dozen lights.
Wow, that's depressing. All right.
Stan, while you've got the mic, can you give us an update on the Chicago Avenue project?
Chicago Avenue project's moving along. We're going to be getting into the right-of-way phase probably in the second quarter of 2014.
That's engineer speak. I know what you're talking about, but when you say right-of-way phase, we're going to actually be purchasing.
I'm going to explain what that is.
Right.
Right-of-way phase is we've got temporary right-of-way, we've got permanent right-of-way that has to be purchased for the project. There's about 150 parcels. Anywhere from a little strip of land in front of a house as a temporary right-of-way so that we could reinstall sidewalk to entire takes of parcels. There's some corners that are going to be totally purchased from the property owners, and we're going to demo the buildings, and we're going to smooth out the curves, especially at Goslin and Sheffield, and at Sheffield and Chicago. Those are two major changes in the configuration of the street. When the street is all done, it's going to be rebuilt from the state line all the way up to East Chicago. There's going to be major safety improvements. Basically, we got a federal grant for 80% of the cost, and we got local match money from NDOT for most of that. Right now, the project looks like it's going to run over budget. We have applied for additional federal dollars through NERC. We've been tentatively approved for, I think, $8.5 million at additional dollars. So the project, you'll probably see construction out there on a portion of it in 2015. We're not sure what section we're going to go with first. There's going to be another public hearing on this project. I think it's either going to be late February or early March, and it'll be scheduled maybe in this building because this is convenient in case anybody wants to come and see the latest plans and the configuration of the project. But it's a major improvement. It's going to be real attractive as you come in from Illinois. There's going to be a landscape median that's going to split the roadway as you come in here. You're going to come from Illinois through that desolate section and go, wow, I'm coming into Hammond, Indiana. Ornamental lights and beautiful landscaping. So I think it's really going to change this whole neighborhood.
I like what it does in north of Goslin too, as far as it sort of protects the neighborhood of cut through traffic, which I think is good for crime control. It's going to be amazing what we're doing there. It's a great project. Looking forward to it. We got what, 2/3 of the financing already lined up?
Yeah, we've got about 2/3 of the engineering finished. We've been getting all our approvals. The federal government looked at it. We were kind of concerned because there's a lot of right-of-way. There's 150 parcels that are being purchased, but Federal Highway thinks that this is a major improvement.
The land that we're purchasing, the properties that we're purchasing, you would be proud of us. It's going to eliminate a lot of blight, a lot of buildings that should have probably been purchased and taken down a long time ago. It's literally a lot of the blight you see along that path will be eliminated, and that's a good thing. You know, it's moving forward as a community. And there's some people that are affected that don't want to lose their property. We acknowledge that, of course. That's unfortunate, but for moving forward, for our city, I think it's a real positive thing. So anyway, great question. Thank you, Stan.
Just a reminder, Irving Community Watch meets right here at Irving the first Friday of each month at 9:15 a.m.
Great. We have a few crime watches present. Does anybody else want to announce our crime watch meetings? You know, when we have a community group here, Mike?
Yes, next meeting of
the next meeting of the Woodmar Crime Watch down south will be Wednesday, November 12th, 6 p.m. at the National Guard Armory on 173rd Street with guest speaker Linda Gergel from the Office of the Indiana Attorney General. She'll be speaking on identity theft, among other things.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else want to announce community meetings coming up? Anna?
February the 18th, and I don't know who the guest speaker is yet.
Okay. East Hammond Pullman Crime Watch, February 18th. Bonnie? Okay. I know Councilman Marks attends the Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association last Tuesday of the month. This month had a great speaker lined up and it got canceled. It was me. I'm just kidding about being great. Got canceled because of the cold.
Robertsdale Crime Watch is February 13th.
February
We'll be
13th.
having the mayor from Whiting speak.
Oh, okay. Mayor Joe speaking. It's always great. So you had Mayor McDermott last month at yours and Mayor Whiting very next, which is nice.
Edison Community Watch will meet Wednesday, February 5th at Edison School. Our guest speaker is going to be P.J. Jones from the Hammond Boys and Girls Club. We are also going to have the Edison School Choir perform
nice.
for us.
Thanks.
Oh, also Edison Community Watch on the Road will meet at the Golden Manor Senior Apartments Thursday, February 6th, and that is at 6 p.m.
Edison Community Watch on the road. I love it. Councilman Mark?
Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association, that was their first cancellation in 16 years.
Yep. They're, it's a great group. Hammond is stronger because of all these crime watches. And Chief Miller, do you mind talking a little bit about crime stats? So we're talking about, you know, Donna, why don't you give them, because Chief came out last week, oh, never mind. Chief came out last week with the annual crime stats that we are bound by law to report to the FBI. Chief?
Good news to report where our overall crime is down about 5%. And the crime statistics that we report it's called the Uniform Crime Report. There are 6 different crimes: murder, rape, robbery, burglary, auto theft, theft, and aggravated battery. And we saw decreases in most. We did have an increase in murder. We had 3 more than we had last year. And we had an increase in rape. Everything else was down. And that goes with the trend that we've been having. That year before, where there was a 4% decrease, and we haven't had an increase since 2010. So I'm very proud of my police officers, my detectives, and also the crime watches that help us out. Without your help and the partnership that we've created, we would not have those positive stats.
Yep. It's literally every night of the week, Hammond's got a crime watch somewhere going on. A crime watch or a community watch, and you can't tell me that's not part of the reason we're doing so well. So appreciate all of you that work so hard in that, and Chief and all the officers who are doing a great job. So thanks, Chief. Sure. Sure. Want to talk Region Stop, Chief?
You know, one of the things that we've noticed in law enforcement is the criminals don't respect borders. Police often do. We stay in our jurisdiction. We work Hammond. Sometimes we have to go into Gary, Chicago, Munster, any of the outlying communities to try to find a criminal that's working in Hammond. But we respect borders. Criminals don't. They work across these borders, Indiana, Illinois, Hammond, Gary, things like that. So in an effort to stop that, several law enforcement agencies in the area created the STOPS team. And basically it's sponsored by Gary, East Chicago, and Hammond, with some buy-in from some of the southern communities, South Lake County communities. They have part-timers involved. And this group of police officers, 7, 8, 9, every single night, go in a different city and work, and they work trouble spots or they work a particular problem. For instance, in late August, we were having students that were being robbed of their cell phones, and it was in the early evening hours. It was kind of scary because these are good kids trying to do the right thing, just walking to and from school activities that were being robbed at gunpoint. And our stops team kind of flooded the Hessville area. That's where we had the problems, and they were able to locate the two juveniles that were involved in it and the one adult, and they made arrests. It was actually in Gary, Indiana. And the nice thing was we had 3 officers on the stops team from Gary. They were able to take us right to the apartment complex where the phone was traced. They knew exactly what kids we were looking for, and they were able to quickly make the arrest. So it's been a really, really good initiative. In addition to reducing crime and some of the problems that we have, it creates partnerships between the police departments, and therefore, if we have a problem with a criminal that's living in Gary or in Munster or wherever, we're very easily able to call up our representative on the stops team from that community and get help, and the entire stops team will go to that community and try to find the individual. So it's been extremely successful venture. I'm very proud of it. Proud of our participation. I go out and ride with them once in a while, and it's just really a good group of guys and girls, and they're doing great work.
Thanks, Chief. Chief was talking about the situation in Hessville. That was a scary situation because, like the Chief said, these were good kids getting stuck, a gun stuck at them, and their cell phones were being robbed. And this is one of my favorite captures because anybody that has a new iPhone knows that there's a feature on the iPhone called Find Your iPhone, and it's used to prevent if somebody steals it. You could literally pull up, if you have another unit, you could literally pull your iPhone up and it shows you exactly where it is. And these kids stole an iPhone, and the kid said, I have Find Your iPhone on my thing, right?
36 minutes later, we were at the apartment complex looking for it, and
you knew exactly where it was.
They started ringing the phone, and it went off in one of the robbers' backpacks. It's a wonderful thing.
He's like, that's a total coincidence. I don't know why my backpack is ringing right now. But yeah, Find Your iPhone. And Chief mentioned earlier how criminals don't respect borders, and he brought up the situation in Hessville where we traced it back to Gary. I remember we had the bank robbery. Was that early this year or late 2012?
No, sir, it was in December of 2012.
December 2012, where the bank robbers, literally around a block from my house, shot a Hammond police officer. Thankfully, he turned out all right. He had some injuries, but thankfully, it wasn't,
He's back at work in 21 days.
Right, it wasn't as drastic, but it's scary when you hear shots fired, officer down. We had a civilian that chased, the civilian chased it and then you took over the chase, right?
What had happened is they had stolen a car that they were going to use just to get them to the bank, and then one of the guys, one of the clowns, I like to call them clowns, parked his mom's Cadillac about 2 blocks away. That was actually going to be their getaway car. They were going to get in the stolen car, drive to the Cadillac, and then take the Cadillac quietly out of our city because we'd be looking for this white Chevrolet that was in the parking lot. The first police officer that responded, the one that was actually shot, parked his police car right in back of the getaway car, and the police officer didn't know it, but it actually blocked the robbers in. So they had to take off on foot after shooting my officer, and a very brave man was right across the street at a gas station, and he followed them to the Cadillac and was calling in on a cell phone telling them they're escaping, they're in this gray Cadillac, there's 2 male subjects, and just then a police officer was coming down the street the other way, and that's when the chase ensued. And the nice thing was the streets were a little bit slick because there had been snow, but we had the brand new SUV vehicles you probably see out there, the police vehicles, and they hugged the road, and they chased these guys into Gary until the guy burned up mom's car, which I'm sure she was real happy about, other than the fact that her son's a bank robber. Yeah. We took the one subject out incident.
Not Mom of the Year.
Yeah.
Material,
And the other one we chased, and we were able to capture. One's been sentenced. He received 25 years in federal prison. The other one's going to be sentenced in February.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that.
So that was great, and I think it's 2 perfect examples Chief Miller brought up of why we're involved in the Region Stop Team because, criminals don't respect borders. So thank you very much, Chief Miller. All right, Donna?
Mayor, abandoned homes and buildings, how long do they take to demolish?
Great question. Attorney Kantar is corporate counsel. I keep wanting to call her city attorney, but we consolidated. When I took over as mayor, we had 3 lawyers that were employed by the city as employees. We had an assistant city attorney, we had a city attorney, and we had corporate counsel. And over the years, we've consolidated into one attorney, Chris Kantar, who's corporate counsel / city attorney / assistant city attorney. Chris, you heard the question.
There's a legal process that has to be accomplished, and short answer, about 6 months. First, we have to identify a property, photograph a property. We have to then obtain title work from the property to determine every single person who has a substantial property interest in that property, lien holders, judgments, anything along the lines. Anybody who shows up on the title work has to get notice. The notice is first sent by regular mail, then it is sent by certified mail, then it is published, And lastly, we tape a notice on the door. Now, of course, if a person who has an interest in a property provides an incorrect address or an old address, the notice will go to that incorrect address or old address, which is why anything in the title work should be updated if a person has an interest. Once that is accomplished, then we set a hearing date. And at the hearing date, the person can show up and explain why the property should or should not be demolished. A lot of times, most people don't show up at all. We'll have October 17th was the last time we did new properties. We had 27 properties on the agenda. We had 3 people show up. The rest of them, we just enter an order. Once we enter an order, we record it at the recorder's office, so it is now a cloud on the title. Nobody can transfer that property without the title work being contaminated by this demolition order. Then we begin the process of obtaining bids. We put out the request for proposals for the bids. It takes about 30 days. We open the bids, we tabulate the bids, we award the bids, and then we have to once again send notice to everybody who's on the title work, which you get a title update, explaining that we're going to now bid for this project for demolition. There's a second hearing date. Anybody who has an objection to the property being demolished can then come in. And finally, if none of that occurs, we proceed forward to issuing permits and we demolish the property.
Could you repeat that again? I missed this stuff.
Once you do it about 400 times, it really becomes easy.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. And I think what Chris is pointing out is it's a very formal process, that once you start it, it's sort of a one-way track. We're going through a situation with the demo right now that was initiated by a council person. He wanted us to move forward. We move forward on it. We literally get 95% of the way done on a piece of property that needs to come down, and then the councilman wants to put a stop to it. And we're trying to explain in situations like this that you initiated a legal process, and we're just doing our job, going through the legal process, and then at the very end of the legal process, you're like, wait a second, we can't knock this down. It's frustrating for us because, we want to clean up our city. We want to get rid of the blight, but, at the same time, I know we have people that are very concerned about keeping historical buildings around as well. So, but anyway, we do over $1 million every year in demolitions in our city. Each house is running us about, what, $8,000 right now, Jim? Is that fair? Right around 8,000 for a house. So, $1 million divided by 8,000 is how many houses we could do. Or if we take on a big building, like we did New York Avenue, 2500 New York Avenue, cost a lot of money. That was a huge demolition project. So, obviously if we take on bigger buildings like that, it costs a lot more. So, anyway, does anybody have a follow-up on that? Okay, thank you.
Next one, Mayor, is just a statement. School, city, state grades.
Mr. Daggett? Hi.
No issues of funding, as you might suspect. And so this is kind of the expectation that many veterans have when they return from active duty and serving, as was the case with me as well. I know School City is a separate entity from Hammond City, but I'm sure you have to have some impressions, some concerns about the results that we've seen recently.
No, I do.
Okay, the other question, just put them both out there now. The other one was, we appreciate the opportunity to deal with firefighters.
Yeah.
Question. Why is it so long?
Okay.
Kind of kept the city on edge, wondering how it would turn out. Maybe you could do
Well, I appreciate it. Sure, no problem. Thank you, Reverend, I appreciate it. Regarding the School City Hammond grades and my impression of the School City, I think they're doing a good job in moving forward. I'll be honest with you, and I'm not one to throw out compliments unless I really feel that way. I think that I mentioned earlier in the speech I gave earlier today to the Chamber of Commerce, I think that we have challenges in Hammond that Munster and Highland and Valparaiso doesn't have. And I think a lot of our challenges have to do with the economics of our city and the fact that we have more challenging situations with families in our city. And it's hard to compare us to Munster or Valparaiso. Kids in Munster and Valparaiso, mom's a lawyer, dad's a doctor. I think in families like that, they're not worried about showing up to school hungry, and they're not worried about whether or not they have a role model that can show them how to do their homework. So it's hard to compare us. I tell you that I've been critical in the past of the School City, and I don't really throw out compliments very much, but I think they're working real hard. I really do. And I know that they're challenged with the amount of money that they receive, just like all of us are. And I think they're doing everything they can. It's easy to bash urban cities when you give a letter grade, but it's not really fair because, you know, you can't compare Gary to Valparaiso. You can't compare Hammond to Munster. They're not comparable cities. Demographically, they're not comparable cities. Economically, they're not comparable cities. You know, Munster is much wealthier than Hammond. Munster has a higher level of education for their average resident than Hammond does. So, you know, obviously I've done things in the past that maybe the school city doesn't agree with. You know, I started a charter school, which is about as out there as I can be on that issue. I believe in charter schools, and I believe in vouchers. But I also believe that the school city is doing everything they can to do a great job, and I need them to do a good job because it's hard to be the mayor when you have a school city that's struggling. And you're right, Mr. Daggett, I don't have any input outside of just being the mayor. I don't have any direct legal input into how the schools are run, okay? But, so anyway, on that question, I appreciate it. On the fire department issue, I'm very happy we reached a deal. Sometimes negotiating parties know each other too well. And this might have been one of those situations where I've been negotiating with the fire department for 10 years and with the same person from the fire department for 10 years, and sometimes personalities get in the way. And maybe that's what happened in this case. But I want to point out that at all times, the city of Hammond was well represented. The fire department showed up to work every day and did a professional job, even though there was questions about how much they were going to get paid, or, you know, it wasn't going to be as much as they used to have. How many days were they going to have off? Even though they had the questions in the back of their mind, they always showed up to work, and they showed up when the fire call happened. In fact, right in the midst of all these problems, we had the horrible situation on Sibley, and the fire department was there within 3 minutes and running in the building within seconds of getting there. And that building was on fire, you know. So I don't think it affected morale for sure. It affected the relationship between the mayor's office and the Hammond Fire Department for sure. I don't think it affected Hammond's safety whatsoever. I think they're too professional, and I would never let that happen as the mayor. I don't think it affected it at all. I know I got my fire chief up here, Jeff. Oh, look at that, right next to me. What do you think, Chief Smith?
Yeah, during the negotiations, I mean, the morale was down. It was up and down every day. Thank God Monday we got it worked out. The tragedy that happened earlier in the month, it affected some of my guys. They're seeing professionals about it now, and it was disturbing for everybody. I mean, it was something that I hope I don't have to ever go through again. But everybody did come to work. We did our job, and yesterday and today, everybody's a little bit happier. So that's it.
A little bit happier. That's a pretty good way to put it. Not really happy, but I don't expect real happy. A little bit happier. But they're doing a great job, and I actually called in a fire on my way to a speech today at lunch, and I literally drove up. There was a car on fire. There was nobody there. I got on my police radio, which I'm always happy when I get to use my police radio, because Chief Miller put it in there, probably thought I'd never get to use it, and I got to use it. I called the fire department out. They were there in 3 minutes. They put the fire out, and they're pros. And like I said, even though we were going through problems, it didn't affect your safety. So. Okay. I appreciate it. I don't really agree with your assessment. I don't think you would know as much about it as I do, but I mean, that's to be expected, but, right. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions?
We've completed the written questions, Mayor.
Really? Looks like we got a stand-up question.
I can't get to you, Mike. Can you reach?
Yeah, Mayor, I got a question. It's kind of a follow-up on what we were talking about, that fire on Sibley Street.
Okay.
Tragically, it took several young lives.
Mm-hmm.
And as I understand, that was a rental property that the landlord was refusing to allow City of Hammond inspectors to go into, and had they been in there, they would have rendered it uninhabitable. I understand there's a piece of legislation downstate right now that the Landlords Association is trying to get through to not have to register their properties, which is frankly, it's out of greed. They make as much money as they can while they can. They don't care about people. They're running a business. And I was wondering, Mayor, if you could tell us about that piece of legislation and how it will affect the city of Hammond.
Thanks. Great question. It's very accurate. Everything you just said is very accurate. That we had an action pending, a court case literally pending a week after the tragedy happened, 6 days after the tragedy happened. We'd been trying to get into this property on Sibley for a long time. We cannot just barge in on properties because you have rights, constitutional protections that we have to abide by. So we have to go through court orders and things of that nature. And had we gotten into that house before the tragedy occurred, it would have been obvious to us that it was a cut-up apartment, which is illegal, and we would have declared it uninhabitable. And it's a travesty, it's a shame, it's a tragedy that we didn't get in there before then. And, you know, Chief Smith talked about how tough it is on the Hammond firemen, and it is. That's no joke. We've all seen the firemen, you know, literally breaking down over this, what they saw when they pulled up there, nobody wants to see. But that just underscores how important our job is in code enforcement and inspections departments to get out there and to see these before they become tragedies. Mike, you also brought up a bill downstate that's sponsored by the Landlords Association. We've fought this bill 3 times and beat it 3 times. It's not going to be beat this year. It's going to pass. And they're literally trying to cripple Hammond and cities like us, our ability to monitor and to charge fees to monitor these properties, which is what we've been doing. It's going to cripple our money, it's going to cripple our money supply to code enforcement. So we have a couple choices. Do we cripple code enforcement, lay off a bunch of inspectors, or do we just suck it up, put the rest of the money on the budget and try to figure out a way to pay for it, which, and that's the process we're going through right now. But if I were a betting man, I would bet that this bill is going to pass this year. It already passed out of committee. It's going to the House floor where it appears likely it's going to pass. And then once it makes its way to the Senate, there's nothing a Democrat could do to help us anymore. It gets over to the Senate, it's going to pass. And, I think that it's a dangerous bill. I think it's going to hurt safety. It's going to hurt cities' ability to get into properties, and it's going to make it easier to have cut-up apartments. That's bad. George?
Yeah, could you clarify, you're no longer going to be allowed to charge fees, these registration fees?
It's rental registration and inspection fees, 2 separate things, okay? We have a rental registration program we've been running in Hammond for a number of years now, which says if you're a landlord and you have a rental apartment, what we want you to do is pay a fee every year. And it's $80, being honest with you, a year, okay, which I'm sure gets passed down to the renter anyway, by the way. $80 a year, and what we do is we accumulate all those $80 payments, and we run code enforcement with that. Code enforcement, 95% of the work they do isn't on your homeowner property, because your property is nice, because that's where we live. You're not going to have a crummy house if you live there. Landlords view things differently, typically. I'm not going to say all landlords do, but typically they allow their units to fall into disrepair, and they become problems for Kelly. Kelly, how much percentage-wise? I said 95%, but that may not be accurate. What is the percentage of rental complaints?
95 to 90%.
So literally, that's basically all you do.
That's what we do all day.
Every once in a while, you give warnings or something to homeowners. Like when you guys cited my house that time, for instance. Every once in a while that happens, right?
A perfect example, we put a warning tag on your garbage can, you could take care of the problem. And homeowners are typical of that. If you let them know there's a situation, they'll take care of it.
Right.
Much more difficult when you're dealing with a tenant or a landlord that...
Because we don't even know where the landlord is. They could be in Florida for all we know, right?
Often.
So you have a fire, or, and you need to reach the landlord, and we don't have any idea where the landlord is. That's the reason we put this program together, right?
Absolutely. We share our information, registration information with police and fire department, and we've had cases where fire responded to a fire on Lake Street, a 5-unit, cut up 5-unit, that they were able to call the tenants and find out if anybody was home, if anybody was in there, saving people from having to go in and try to make a rescue when there's no one there.
Right. Might send a fireman into a burning house if we don't have to, right?
Absolutely. This is going to cripple us. We're going to still do what we're going to do, whatever steps we've got to take. We believe firmly in this, and you know that. It's passionate and it's personal.
It's very personal with us now in light of what just happened a week ago. It was literally such tasteless timing on their part. We just had the tragedy in Hammond, and it was literally the day of the funeral they floated this bill. And it's like, and they know, by the way, they know Hammond is one of the big fighters of this bill that we're literally aimed at by the rental association. They sued
Absolutely.
us.
Absolutely. One of the things in this case is it seems that we issued the citation and then a contract sale was brought in after the citation was issued. So there was another owner to the property on a contract sale. I don't know if they were paid for anything or not. But as soon as we cited, they dished it off. They wanted a continuance so they could clear up the title, basically get that recorded so he could be the owner. He'd be the one with the citation.
Right.
Happens way too often.
Right. So anyway, George, getting back to your question, we charge a rental registration fee. It's a rental registration program. What they're saying is an apartment complex like Tanglewood with multiple units, they may have to pay $15,000 to the city for all the fees, and they say you don't even inspect them every year. You may only inspect them once every 3 years, and yet every year they have to pay you $15,000 for the rental registration fee. And they're literally completely sticking up for the apartment association. And the gentleman that had floated this bill 2 out of the last 3 years is a representative from Indianapolis named Speedy. He comes from a family that owns apartment complexes. So obviously this guy's biased. Obviously he's literally representing the apartment association. And they talk about apartments to us like we don't know what apartments are. And I say, you know what's funny about the region? Apartment complexes start off nice in the region and check in 15, 20 years later, and they're not so nice anymore. But you're talking to somebody from a different part of Indiana where they have tons of apartments and they're all really nice. So it's hard for them to comprehend what we go through up here, George. But yeah, they're literally going to cap our fee at $5 from 80 to 5 a year. Cannot, and it's set in state statute. So 30 years from now, it still may say $5. In 30 years from now, $5 would be like a nickel. And it's literally set in state law. So yeah, there's like, no, we're all for the public health and safety, Mayor McDermott. We just want to completely eliminate any chance you have to get into that property or charge a fee to get into that property. And we're literally talking about 3 kids that passed away in a horrible tragedy due to landlord negligence. I mean, a lot of negligence to go around, but landlord negligence is definitely part of this. And it's going to make it harder for us to get in these houses. Who's on our side? That's the thing. When you go downstate, George, they're not on our side. They have no clue what it's like to live in Northwest Indiana, to be right outside of Chicago, because they're from Mayberry in Southern Indiana. They have no idea, the challenges we face up here. And they don't even care. That's the thing. It's like, listen, I get donations every year from the apartment association, so I'm going to do whatever they say. That's the kind of attitude we run into. It's disgraceful. It really is. And I wish there was a reporter here taking down my every word right now. There's not, I don't think. Oh, hey, I see somebody taking notes over there. Please, write down every word I said, because it's disgraceful what they're doing in Indianapolis to limit this program. It's going to result in a decreased level of safety. So. What they're going to say is they can inspect themselves. So they basically are going to say, all right, Tanglewood hired Joe Blow with a van that says Joe Blow's inspection service. Joe Blow comes in, walks through, says, looks good. Here you go, Tanglewood. That's $12. And Tanglewood turns out and gives it to Kelly. They would have normally given Kelly a check for $15,000. They're going to give him a check for $12 and say, hey, Joe Blow inspected it. Yeah.
This is type of one of the portions that disturbs me the most. I'm a certified home inspector. I've just passed a HUD minimum housing standard inspections, and I know from going through those courses when they go into a house, they're not obligated to tell you if something is in the code or not. International Residential Code minimum ceiling height is 7 feet. We're in basement apartments all the time that are 6'5", 6'7", do not meet that minimum. As a home inspector, as a HUD inspector, you have no obligation to make that point. If you have the window circumference, you have the amount of square footage for windows, that's fine. Doesn't matter if it's glass block or not. So you go into basement apartments, all glass block windows, that's fine with them. So I don't know who's going to do these inspections. I don't know how they're going to be trained, but they're not going to be enforcing building codes. And that was the situation on Sibley.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah. George, you know what kills me? Because we're talking, We're talking to a lot of people that are, and I'm not trying to get political here, and it's not political. I know what political philosophies are, and I'm talking to 75, 80% Republicans that are supporting this. And I say, listen, if Barack Obama, like Affordable Health Care Act, for instance, and you guys scream bloody murder because how could the federal government force us to do something we don't want to do here in the States, right? You hear it all the time. In fact, we're going so far into Indiana as we're literally not insuring people out of spite for Washington, D.C., because they believe so strongly in opposing the Affordable Health Care Act. People like Governor Pence and his allies. And these same people that would scream bloody murder if Washington, D.C. did something like this are literally tying our hands so that we can't inspect properties. Why? They want to save $80 for their apartments. $80 a year. That's what this is all about. It's $80 a year. No, not supersede. No. We get all of our power from the state, George. And a lot of cities in Illinois, for instance, have a lot more power than we do. They have something called home rule, which is what we've been pushing for years, unsuccessfully pushing for years, is to give us ability to do things locally. And I brought up this example earlier today, and I'm going to bring it up again. We sell a lot of fireworks in our city. Unfortunately, I think most of us would agree that we are inundated with people from Illinois that are buying fireworks, in June and July, right? Can you imagine if the state allowed us to tack on $1 on every fireworks sale? Literally, let's say every time we sell a firework, if it's a firecracker, if it's a firework, if it's a fountain, you put $1 on each sale. And all those dollars accumulate into a few $1 million, and it has to be spent on the Hammond Fire Department. We would literally lower your taxes by $3 million. We would use that money to pay a part of the proceeds of the Hammond Fire Department, which makes sense. You buy a firework. I have a feeling the fire department's going to be a little bit harder working because of that, right? So why not? It makes sense. We could do all kinds of stuff like that. You could say, Hammond also sells a lot of gas. Well, every time you sell a gallon of gas, 1 penny will go to the local government. And we're going to accumulate all those pennies, and it's going to turn into $3 or $4 million, and we'll use it on pothole patching or street repair. This is good government. This is typical government in most of the United States, not in Indiana. This place is run from a constitution that was made in 1840. Hasn't changed since then. And it's archaic. The way we do business is archaic. And the way they treat cities, it's servitude. And we have really no power unless they give it to us. Chris, you could probably do a better job explaining this than me. Yeah? Thanks. I'm getting in trouble. So, anyway. Any other follow-up questions on that? George is getting me all mad before I leave. So, anyway, Mayor's Night Out, I think it's a great thing. I appreciate you all coming out. Appreciate the elected officials being here. I apologize again to County Councilman Dave Ham. And I appreciate everybody being out here, though. Mayor's Night would be nothing without you. It will air on Go Hammond TV. So thank you, guys. Enjoy the night.